I never fully understood why Avatar became the highest-grossing film of all time. The visuals, yes, obviously. But the story? Colonial invasion, cultural assimilation, outsider goes native and becomes the hero? Ideas explored 100 times before, presented in a way that felt more comfortable than challenging. So when Way of Water dropped in 2022, I was already checked out. My friends were obsessed with it. I couldn't get myself to care. It felt like a cash grab, a sequel nobody had asked for, with nothing genuinely new to say. Cameron was going to nail the visuals, that was a given. But the rest of it? I already knew how it was going to go. So I didn't watch it. A few weeks ago, a friend sat me down and told me I was wrong. Not about the story being predictable, about whether that mattered. So I tried it. Everything I predicted came true. The outsider family arrives somewhere new, they're rejected at first, they train, they bond, the villain finds them, someone dies, they fight back, credits roll. I called every single beat before it happened, and I loved it. That shouldn't make sense. A movie doing exactly what you expect should feel like homework. But I sat there for 3 hours and 15 minutes, completely engaged. I didn't want it to end. So how does a film that does exactly what you predict still work? The answer sits deeper than the story itself. And once you clock it, it changes how you watch everything. I'm Mac, this is Mac and Flicks, and let's talk about the most predictable movie I ended up liking way more than I expected. There's a difference between a story that's simplistic and a story that's simple. A simplistic story has nothing underneath it. Thin characters, hollow ideas, stakes that never land. A simple story relies on familiar ground, situations and character types you recognize instantly, absorb without effort, so your focus is free to go somewhere else entirely. Way of Water is the second kind, and understanding that is everything. Think about what this film is actually asking your brain to do. It runs in high frame rate 3D with photorealistic water, alien cultures with their own languages, rituals, ecosystems, and beliefs about the universe. Every frame is packed with visual information you've never encountered before. The ocean of Pandora alone, the light moving through the water, the bioluminescent creatures, the way the whole world pulses and breathes. Nothing put on screen before it comes close. The high frame rate is worth pausing on. Regular film runs at 24 frames per second, which gives the image a slight cinematic softness your brain quietly registers as movie distance. HFR strips that away. The image looks immediate, present, almost too real. Cameron is using the frame rate to remove the gap between you and Pandora. Cameron has talked about this directly. He describes high frame rate as reducing what he calls brain strain in 3D. At 24 frames per second, fast motion produces a slight strobing effect your brain is constantly working to smooth over. You're not aware it's happening, but the effort is there. HFR removes that requirement. Your brain stops compensating for the image and starts living inside it. Whether or not you like the look, that's the whole point. Less friction. The image stops requiring work, which means more of your focus stays on Pandora. James Cameron built this world with enough depth that there's always something fascinating on screen. From Pandora's own version of God, to dozens of unique fish and animal species, to the spirit trees of different cultures. Every corner of this world has been thought through. During slower moments in the story, he lingers on something extraordinary about the world. A creature you've never seen, doing something you'd never imagine. A ritual of the Metkaina clan, the water tribe whose entire culture was never touched in the first film, that tells you something new about how Pandora works. Cameron fills every moment, even the quiet ones, with something worth watching, so the story can breathe. And you sit there genuinely fascinated, learning this world, without ever feeling like the film has stalled. If the plot demanded the same mental effort as the visuals, you'd check out 30 minutes in. You can't track a complex thriller while marveling at a whale-sized creature that communicates through music and mathematics. Your brain doesn't have the bandwidth for both. Something has to yield. And Cameron decided the story would yield so the world could take over. Every film works with a limited attention budget. You can spend it on plot, or on world, or on emotion. But you can't fully spend it on all three at once. Something always gets shorted. Cameron decided up front where the budget goes. He keeps the story lean so your full focus can land somewhere else. The more complex your world, the simpler your story needs to be. Otherwise, the audience's attention splits and neither side fully lands. You can see what happens when a film makes the opposite call. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness has the same visual density as Avatar. Alternate realities, magical systems, chaos in every frame. but it adds complicated plot layers on top of all that spectacle. Variants, rules, shifting motivations, your focus splits. You're trying to decode the mechanics while also processing the emotion. Neither fully lands. Tenet takes it even further. The entire experience is built around understanding how the mechanics work. Your brain stays in problem-solving mode for 2 hours straight. And when that happens, emotional connection becomes secondary. Not because the film doesn't try, because it can't get your full attention. Cameron made the opposite bet. Keep the story simple so the world can have all of it. Way of Water plays everything completely straight. The grief is real grief. The danger is real danger. When characters say something earnest about family or belonging or what they're willing to die for, nobody in the film rolls their eyes. The world is treated as if it genuinely exists and genuinely matters. That sincerity is what holds the simple story together. The moment you add irony, add distance, let the audience feel the artifice, simplicity curdles into shallowness. Commit to it fully, and that same simplicity becomes something you can actually live inside. Predictability does something else too that takes a second to see. It builds trust. When a story follows patterns your brain already recognizes, you stop questioning it. You're not trying to figure out where it's going, you just settle. And once you settle, you stop watching the movie and start living inside it. Familiar patterns hand you the map up front. You already know this territory, so your brain stops navigating and starts experiencing. The film's own philosophy says all of this better than I can. The Way of Water has no beginning and no end. Water is formless, adaptive. It takes whatever shape the container requires and keeps moving. The story works the same way. It flows through your expectations. By the time you arrive where you knew you'd arrive, the journey has done its work. Hold on to that. It becomes the film's answer to everything. Sequels have one job: recreate the feeling of the original. The first Avatar sold transcendent wonder, the feeling of encountering a world so alive it makes your own feel hollow by comparison. Environmental grief, the visceral anger of watching something sacred get destroyed for money. That's what people paid for in 2009, and that's what they came back for in 2022. They wanted that same feeling through a new door. A sequel that gave them something completely different would have felt like a betrayal. So the writers built what you might call a franchise engine. 3 core pillars repeated across every Avatar film: new land, new people, new threat. Against that backdrop, the same emotional delivery: wonder, loss, fight back. Every arc, every set piece, every idea feeds that engine. Once you see it clearly, the simplicity reads like a decision, not a limitation. That breathing room is where the film starts working. Most blockbusters run on a beginning, middle, and end, where the conflict escalates from one scene to the next. Way of Water uses more stages than that, and the middle section, where most films are at full throttle, is deliberately elongated. Cameron uses that time to make you care before he makes you hurt. Attention redirected. That's the whole game. The long middle section has no major threat and no countdown, just the Sully family slowly learning to exist in a new world. When I rewatched it, something became clear that I missed the first time. Every single scene in that stretch is doing the same thing, building connection to the reef, to the Metcalina, to what it would cost to lose any of this. Cameron is preparing you emotionally for things you don't know are coming yet. The underwater camera work is part of this. Water slows everything down. Movement is deliberate, sustained, unhurried. Cameron leans into that. The camera holds on things longer. Wide shots of the ocean floor, creatures drifting, light refracting. You genuinely can't rush through it. The physics of water force you to slow your attention down, and that slowness is exactly what Cameron needs. The world is teaching you how to watch it. Jake's voiceover acts as an anchor throughout.
But I know one thing. Wherever we go, this family is our fortress.
The world is massive and constantly expanding. New creatures, new clan, new ocean, new spiritual systems. His narration gives you a fixed point inside all of it. You're always experiencing the world through someone whose perspective you already trust. Without that, the scale could easily tip from overwhelming into exhausting. Most sequels don't acknowledge the problem Way of Water had to solve. In the first Avatar, Jake's ignorance is what carries the wonder. He knows nothing, so he asks the questions we need answered and marvels at everything we need to marvel at. By Way of Water, he's been Na'vi for a decade. He can't play the newcomer without undoing everything the first film built. So the screenplay transfers that role to the children. Loak, Kiri, and Took know nothing. The wonder flows through them. and the film runs on two emotional tracks at once. The children experiencing genuine discovery, the parents experiencing genuine dread. Every moment of wonder for the kids sits against a backdrop of fear. Those two things feed each other constantly. There's a shift in the stakes underneath this that's easy to miss. The first film is about enormous things, saving a planet, winning a war. This one shrinks all of that down. The goal is keeping a family alive. The scale gets smaller and the weight gets heavier. Saving the world is something you watch from a distance. Watching a father fail to protect his children despite doing everything right, that lands somewhere completely different. Every one of these choices points toward the same goal: keep the audience emotionally present long enough for the payoff to land. That's what the film looks like when it's working. But before we get into where it doesn't, real quick, if this kind of analysis is your thing, hit subscribe and drop a like. Follow on the socials too, links are in the description. Alright, back to it. And this is the trade-off. The same simplicity that makes the film immersive also limits how much it can generate on its own. You gain focus, you sacrifice momentum. When you build a story on familiar beats, you still need something to keep it moving. Jake is hiding for most of the film. The villain has to come to him. And the main tool the screenplay uses to manufacture pressure is putting the children in danger, which works once, works twice, and by the third time, you're watching the mechanics of it more than you're feeling it. Loak keeps going somewhere he's been told not to go, getting into exactly the trouble he's been warned about. The film is generating urgency by temporarily making the characters act against what they've learned. You start to feel the wires. The character who pays the heaviest price is Neytiri, and this comes directly from the same trade the film made. The screenplay put its full attention on Loak. His arc gets the screen time, the emotional payoff, the argument. That choice required someone else to carry less. Neytiri is the one who carries less. The first film built her as maybe its most compelling character. She chose to fall in love with someone who came to destroy her world. She watched that person betray everything she taught him and still found a way through it. That's someone with enormous range. Way of Water parks her at the edges of scenes, watching, worried, reacting. Her inability to see Spider as just a kid, and the grief driving it, is the richest thing the sequel does with her, and it gets about 4 scenes. Her third act explosion, when Neytiri dies and everything breaks loose, is one of the best sequences in the film. But the film needed to ration her to get there. Simplicity requires sacrifice. Neytiri paid that price. The third act has a gap that the momentum mostly covers. The Medcayuna spend the entire film being established as proud warriors with a spiritual debt to the Tolkun. When the final battle starts, a battle to avenge their slaughtered kin, they participate for a while and then effectively disappear. The climax narrows to the Sully family and Quaritch on a sinking ship, and the Reef clan is just gone. The intimacy of that final sequence is what makes it devastating. The flooding corridors, the family separated in the dark water, the silence of it. Extraordinary filmmaking. But the screenplay never explains where the Medcayuna went. The film trusts you not to notice, and mostly you don't, but it's there. I went into this expecting to make a video about how Avatar isn't as good as people say. I came out unable to make that argument. I called every beat of this film before it happened, sat there for 3 hours knowing exactly what was coming next, and when Neytiri didn't come back up, I felt it anyway. That's the whole point. Something had to yield. Cameron chose the story, and because of that, everything else lands. What this film proves is that simplicity isn't a lack of effort. It's a choice about where the audience should focus. Every film has a limited attention budget. Where you spend it determines what people feel. Avatar spent it on the world, and the world delivered. The film never asked your attention to be in 2 places at once. That clarity is what let the emotion through. Most blockbuster directors don't have the nerve to do that. Modern blockbusters treat quiet like a threat. Every pause gets filled with plot or score or something moving on screen, because silence feels like a risk. Way of Water treats quiet like a resource. Cameron filled the quiet moments with Pandora, and trusted that Pandora was enough. He was right. The takeaway goes beyond Avatar. We reward complexity, celebrate the twist, praise the film that outwits you, knowing exactly what your audience needs and delivering it without hedging, without cramming in extra plot just to prove you worked hard. That's a different skill entirely, and it's rarer than it looks. Most films never actually figure out what they're for. This one did. And if you want to see what happens when a franchise figures out what it's for and then slowly loses it, I broke down the full story of how Jurassic Park went from one of the greatest films ever made to a franchise that forgot why it worked. That video is up on the channel now, links on screen.